You'll remember that I bought this thickness sander from Jim Byrnes a few months ago. And as I started to use it, I came across this little problem that I had, which has nothing to do with the Byrnes sander. It really has to do with how I use it. I made up this little sled that helps me push the pieces that I want to sand through the machine. And you just put it down. It has a little edge here and it holds it tight. Turn the machine on and then push the piece through. And that little kickback is caused by the sled bumping up because the plate doesn't go far enough back for my sled. Now I know you can be very careful and make sure you keep the pressure right at the edge of the machine, and that won't happen. But I found it was happening too much with me, so I decided what I'd do is get a longer plate and extend both the feed on the inside, because it also happens with the feed that when I'm putting it in, I can push it up and that'll damage the sled. And then of course on the other side, I'm pushing it down and I damage the piece and the sled. So I've decided that I'm going to add, at first I thought it was 2 inches, but I think 2.5 inches at the feed, which will make sure I don't have any issues, and 3.5 on the end of it. Now we just need to take it apart, and wow, you know, it never ceases to amaze me when I start taking apart any of Jim's tools. You see the quality of the workmanship, it's just incredible. So now we're just taking the markings off of it, and I'm going to take it down to my friend Cletus Berkeley because it won't fit on my mill. So to make sure that I have everything exactly the way Jim laid it out, I've put this black mark on the aluminum piece and scribed very fine lines so that I can cut exactly the line that Jim cut. So here we are in Mr. Cletus Berkeley's machine shop, and he's going to give us some wonders with his absolutely magnificent PM935TS. What the ass is that, Cletus?
Precision Matthews.
The first thing we did was check the square, and we found that the plate that I'd purchased wasn't that square, so we had to fix both ends. At the same time, we checked the flatness of the plate, and there was a very slight, wasn't absolutely flat. But we decided to ignore that because I didn't want to change the thickness of the plate at all. Of course, the main reason that I'm here is because my Sherline mill didn't have the throat or the depth to allow me to cut the slots and to drill the various holes in the side of the plate. And so thank goodness I have friends with state-of-the-art equipment that can really machine this plate for me. As we flip it over, you'll notice that little piece on the side of the vise with the little red knob on the arm. That's a centering piece of equipment that makes sure that when we flip the piece over, that we're cutting in the exact same position as we did on the left side. It's a piece I'm certainly going to order for my Sherline because I've often had this problem. This machine does have the ability to put a limited amount of coolant on the piece. He has another mill which is for really wet work. This is for more dry work with some lubricant in it. And that little bar was essential now to get the drill holes so that they line up exactly on either side in the exact spot. And Cletus had this nice thing for checking size of nuts and bolts, which was really fantastic. So now we're drilling the holes, and the wiggler becomes utmost important for setting the center point. Again, this may be a slight problem because of the different thickness in the plate, but there's nothing I can do about that now. I'm just hoping that it's not going to cause a vibration as we go along, or that the plate doesn't sit exactly flat, because it'll be sitting on, in a sense, these two screw holes and the wheel that adjusts the height on those 3 points. So theoretically, it shouldn't be an issue. I didn't bring my taps with me, so Cletus just drilled the basic holes, one drill size short of what we need. And then when I get back into my shop, I'll tap out the 6 holes that we need to put inside. It really is so refreshing to be in a machine shop that has an accessory for almost anything that we need to do. So here we've gone now, we've flipped it over, and we're putting the screw holes on the other side. Again, look at that little thing on the bottom left there. I'm showing you with my hand. That makes sure that those screw holes are in exactly the same position, so it lines up perfectly, and we don't have any problem when we go to fit the plate back on the machine. Cletus is using a lot more lubricant now. You can see it almost dripping off the piece there, to make sure there's no stress on the drill bit, and we get a perfect hole every time. Now we're going to do the last 2 holes, which hold a little plate that, in the case of my sled, keeps it on place. And we're going to use the wiggler again to make sure that we have the center. This is not as critical because it doesn't affect the alignment in any way, shape, or form. Of course, my mill doesn't have any of these readouts, and it's just so fantastic to see the machine establish the exact center. So nothing is left a chance if you have the ability to establish the center on piece. The result of that, of course, is that this thing is going to sit perfectly. One of the interesting observations that Cletus made, is that all the measurements are exactly the same. This was 1.75, the space between the 2 screws. So again, it was easy. We didn't have to actually try and set it using the eye. An engineer drilled these holes so both sides were exactly 1.75 apart, and he could use that measurement with confidence that the plate would line up with the holes. The last piece of machining was to establish a slot below which the adjustment screw fits into. Again, I don't think this is critical, although in a sense it could cause an alignment problem if that plate is not absolutely flat. But because it's a round slot, I don't think it's going to impact significantly. At least I hope not. I just did a quick manual inspection to make sure that it fit in the groove with a little bit of play. Not too much, just a little bit. Because it is spring-loaded, and we'll pull it up against the plate. So it really shouldn't be critical and shouldn't cause a problem, again, because it's curved. And it would be remiss of me if I didn't give you a real quick 10-cent tour of this shop. Really a workman's dream, of course, way beyond anything any of us modelers would like. He has a plasma cutter in the back there. Of course, that's the big mill that we were using. Behind it, there's a wet mill that he uses for work that requires a lot of fluid being put on a piece, and again, it has that little box around it to prevent any of the stuff coming out. And this is his electronic shop. Cletus actually is an electrical engineer. So that was his first love. And he was servicing many medical machines, but found there was a need to set up a machine shop because many of the parts that he needed simply were not available, too far, too expensive. So really fantastic. And here he's showing me his Lazy Susan. Both of us are married to Susan, so we had to be very careful that no one overheard what we were saying, and there was no reference to our wives. Well, I'm back in the shop, and Cletus didn't have both taps that I required, so I thought I'd do that here. And the first one is the hole that holds the springs, and that's a 836 tap. Ironically, I was in a shop in Tobago recently and came across some thread cutting oil, and so we're going to put a little bit. The screws on the side are 440, so we're going to tap those out now. And just to make sure we've got it right. One of the great things about filming when you take something apart is when you're putting it back together, you can always reference it. So I actually mixed up these two wheels when I was putting them back, and now they are spot on. The big wheel goes on the top and the small wheel goes on the bottom. And again, make sure you tighten up and square the pins. And what I did also to help align them is I took the pressure off the back one, just had it on tighten up on the top one. And now I'm getting a little noise on the motor here. I'm not quite sure why. So it turned out that what I really needed to do was reduce the tension on the belt, which so I've taken some of the tension off, tightened everything back up, and these Phillips head, the odds are you're going to lose them. I've lost two, found them back. Now I've lost one, but they're 832, so again, you should be able to find them in a hardware store. Now this may be too slack, but the noise is gone, so the truth is I'm going to leave it slack unless I have a problem going forward, maybe slipping or something like that. So here is the old plate, and here is the new plate. So as you can see, I can put a lot of pressure on it as it comes out this side, and a lot of pressure as it comes out this side. Of course, one of the main problems of doing this is that you can't see the adjustment wheel at the bottom. For me, that was not a real issue because I hardly ever actually did measurements on it and would calculate the amount that I'm going to sand off by just making very small adjustments. And then again, when I use the sled would prevent me from seeing it anyway, although you could have pulled it back and looked at the adjustment. That was a lot of work for a minor improvement, and I'm certainly not suggesting that everybody who has one of these wonderful tools from Jim that you do the modification. It's a problem I had with how I used the sander, and really particular to me. And the last thing I'd ever want to do is cast any aspersions on the wonderful tool that Jim makes. In fact, having really taken this tool apart, I'm even more in awe of the detail that Jim puts into things that you'll never see. It's a really great engineer who, when you open up something, the insides are as good as the outside. So we'll see you in my next video, and remember, keep modeling.